You guys good on that?
Where are you going to go for the presentation? Are you going to walk down there? You give it to them? How do you want to do it?
I would rather not work down there. Do you want to? I was just gonna read it.
Oh, okay. You just say, well, it's a present. It says present a certificate too.
Okay.
So.
Call to order the regular board meeting of the Chesterfield Township Board of Trustees, July 24th at 7 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance tonight will be by the board. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echevetti.
Here.
Treasurer LaFata.
Here.
Trustee Anderson.
Here.
Trustee Joseph.
Here.
Trustee Bossberg. Here. Trustee DeBank.
Here.
Clerk Barry is here.
All members are present. Item number 4, presentation. I'd like to present a certificate of appreciation to Keller Williams of Macomb St. Clair for their help in partnering with the Beautification Committee to clean up Brandenburg Park, Veterans Park, and the township offices. Coming up.
Will you sign mine?
Yes, thanks again. We took care of those 3 parks. We call it Red Day. It's our day of giving back to the community. We really appreciate it. Taking care of the community. We look forward to the future developments. And Brent, anything to say?
Yeah, it's really great to just be able to kind of get involved in what's going on out here because it makes our job easier as realtors when the parks and everything a little bit better. It just makes it a little easier. So thanks for the opportunity to do that and look forward to helping out again next year.
I'd just like to say on behalf of the Beautification Committee and behalf of the residents of Chesterfield, we really appreciate your help and look forward to doing it in the future. You gave us a great shot in the arm for this year. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you again to Keller Williams for participating in your support of our community. Item number 5, department reports. Seeing none, item number 6 is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered routine by the board and will be enacted in one motion. There is no separate discussion of these items. If discussion of any item is required by a board member, it will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Public comments on the consent agenda are permitted. A, approval of the agenda. B, approval of the minutes of the regular board meeting of July 10th, 2017. And C, approval of the payment of bills as submitted by the Finance Department. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the following amendments. I am asking for the removal of agenda item 7A and 8A with the addendum item 9, letter A, set a public hearing for August 7th, 2017 at 7 p.m. pursuant to Act 33, Public Acts of 1951 as amended, on the issue of whether to create a special assessment district for the maintenance operation and for the purchase of motor vehicles, apparatus, equipment, and housing for a combined police and fire public safety department, and to hear objections against the creation of the special assessment district and the estimate of costs and the amount of the special assessment levy. Additionally, I would like to include under the approval of minutes from the regular board meeting of July 10th, also the minutes of the July 20th special board meeting. With regard to the removal of 7A and 8A, it is my belief that consideration of the addendum would make the public hearing for the special assessment district for police protection irrelevant.
And a motion by Trustee Joseph.
Support.
Support by Clerk Barry. 2, approve the consent agenda as amended. Discussion. Motion by Trustee Joseph, support by Clerk Barry. Please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item 8B, approve a request by the Finance Department for the adoption of budget amendments for 2017, and our Finance Director, Vicki Bauer, is here to
Hey, guys.
give us a little room.
All right, so looking at the 2017 July budget amendments, this is a high-level budget amendment, as we will also be doing more amendments throughout this year. I'm going to go over it, again, hitting on some of the higher points. I talked to a lot of the board members individually, going over everything, but if there's any questions on any of them that I have not, that I don't hit, please let me know. It's going to be in that yellow column. That's what I'm asking for approval for. One of the biggest changes that you're going to see with this amendment is a move for greater transparency, moving from like all of our employee type costs in general fund, from a fund-based accounting to a department-based accounting. So then you can actually go through the departments and see, you know, what the accounting department's FICA Medicare cost is versus just seeing it all in general fund. So that's the majority of your changes. So if there's any questions on that, let me know. I can go over it. Some of the other ones we have on page 1, the transfer from building department. You'll see we're estimating a lower transfer needed. That's due to increase in building activity. So that's actually a wonderful thing. We're busier and doing well. On page 2, you're going to see, again, all those transfers for the clerk's office for like the medical and FICA and stuff like that. You'll see capital outlay. We approved at the last meeting the purchase of the additional voting equipment. So the cost is actually going to be reflected in the elections department. Moving down, again, most of that stuff is that department level costing now. You're going to see in this budget, there's, you know, we've had a few personnel changes. The personnel coordinator, which is at the bottom, how that shift in body. The next page, again, please, if there's something we want to go over in more detail, let me know. The human resource department, we have the additional director that's for part of the year, so you'll see that amendment there. At the very bottom of page 3, you'll see we have our new facilities and operations director, so his salary is now included within the budget. Moving to the next page, you're going to see the recreation, again, personnel, large items that have happened. So the personnel position had changed. And then in that dark blue category, you're going to see the net changes for general fund. And actually kind of just moving forward to page 6, you're going to see fire equipment. That's a rather large amendment. At last meeting, we approved the purchase of 2 fire engines for $1.1 million. So that's being amended in this amendment proposal. The building fund is right below that. Again, that's because of an increase in the building permits, electrical permits, heating permits. We're having those numbers increase, but the need for general fund to transfer went down by $70,000. And then lastly, the last page is the water and sewer department. The big change, well, 2 big things going on there. Again, with the theme of increased building projections, we have the water and sewer, their projection for their inspection fees, sewer taps, that kind of nature, those are going up. And at the bottom, we've had a couple times the water and sewer department have come for meter replacement. So that's something big going on within the water and sewer department, where we've had some of our meters fail and we've had to replace a significant amount of those. So that amount is there to cover the cost of those replacements. I know, real quick, high level, there's a lot of...
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve a request by the Finance Department for the adoption of the budget amendments
Support.
for 2017. Motion by Supervisor Akavetti, support by Trustee Joseph. Any questions or discussion from the board? I'll give a quick overview on this pretty substantial and necessary change in one of our processes that started last year. In that, I wanted to do a couple things. One was keep a closer eye on our budget as the year goes on. So have high-level amendments as we move in throughout the year. You will see 3 of these. One right around now, after the first half of the year, the fiscal year is over. One at the beginning of right around the beginning of the 3rd quarter, when we anticipate the 2018 or the next year's budget to be preliminarily passed, and a final budget amendment, which used to be our only one, in December of the current year. So we'll be working on 3 separate budgets at one time, and more, including the out years. The prior year budget, closing those books, getting the audit done in our first quarter, finishing up in our 2nd quarter of our current fiscal year. Our current year budget will be amending as we get better information moving forward. And next year's budget, which used to get complete later in the season, we are anticipating getting those done closer to the end of the 3rd quarter. Another important part here that our finance director pointed on is trying to pinpoint exact costs for the services that we provide. And that's why you'll see in the general fund specific breakouts per department for specific costs, specifically medical, pension, and costs that go into those exact departments. With the thought being, when you know what each service costs that we provide, each asset costs that we maintain, we'll know where we need to invest or make some changes in to put us on a sustainable path. Any comments from the board? Treasurer LaFata.
I have a question on the increase on the operating supplies for the water meter replacements. Part of this process should be to do an analytical based on what we're seeing. And the only couple of questions I have, I'll wait for Kevin to come up to the podium. He's probably prepared anyway. I mean, we have an unexpected jump in the operating supply dollar value, and it's because of we're replacing meters, and it's been ongoing through this past year. One question is do we know how many meters we have like this out in the field and the expectant maybe failure for next year moving forward? And the other question is, if so many of them are failing, have we gone back to the supplier, which I think is Neptune, and have them tear down one of these meters and say, you know, tell us exactly what's happening so they can supply us with a new mousetrap?
So just to clarify, it's not meters we're replacing, it's the radio read device. So it's 2 different things. So the meters in the houses are fine. The radio that allows us to read the meter is what's failing. So we're replacing those. Currently, we have just over 22,000 meters in our system. We've replaced so far 6,500 roughly of the R900s, we call them, the radio read devices, which means we've got about 15,600 remaining to replace. And so the thing with the current ones that are installed, the older ones, they were installed between 2000 and 2005. They had a 10-year lifespan, which means they're between 12 and 17 years old right now, which is well beyond their lifespan. So we're currently looking to replace all of them. There's going to be a jump in this account because we did find out from High Tech and our computer guys that they're going to be upgrading to Windows 10 and all of our computers in April of 2020. And the old software that we have for these Raymars, they're not updating it because it's old technology. we're installing new, which means we're going to have to potentially replace the rest of them by 2020, which is 15,000 of them by that time frame. So we have to look and kind of do some research on that and kind of make sure the timetable, if that's actually an exact number, things like that. So there's gonna be a significant jump in that account in the coming years, just to be aware.
Thank you. No, it's good information to know moving forward.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support this motion. One of the things that I always look at when there's budget adjustments is if they need an increase here, why isn't there a cut somewhere else? And I realize there's a number of reasons why they're not, and perhaps it was under budgeted to begin with. But the second thing I look at is, will the remaining fund balance, what is that as a percentage of their annual income? And all of them well exceed, I think 59%, all except the police department, exceed 59% is the lowest one of the ones that I think are very highly funded. That's the water and sewer, and the rest are over 100%. So in other words, there's enough money in their fund balance to pay for a whole year's worth of expenses, even if we never had any income come in. But of course, we do have annual taxes coming in. The one that's problematic is the police department, but we're well aware of that and working to correct that as well. And we'll still have 11% balance. So for those reasons, I support this.
Any further board comments? Comments from the public? One more important piece of these budget amendments is our focus is primarily going to be on the expense side, or the appropriation side, but the revenue side is also something that can change. We're fortunate this year that our state share of revenue popped up a touch, we anticipate, and we have more building activity and development activity, which is a positive to our budget. There might come a time where there's a negative adjustment that has to be made and a negative supplemental, and this process, I think, is a very important one to have better budgets, better projections, and better government. So thank you so much. Motion by Supervisor Echeverry, support by Trustee Joseph, to approve the request by the Finance Department for the adoption of the first budget amendments for 2017. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echeverry.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosper.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
Motion passes. 8C, approve a request by the treasurer to approve the yearly street lighting special assessment for the 2017 winter tax roll. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the request by the treasurer to approve the yearly street lighting special assessment for the 2017 tax roll.
Motion by Clerk Berry,
Support.
support by Trustee Anderson. Discussion. Pretty straightforward. Discussion from any comment from the public? Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosper.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Echeverry.
Aye. Item 8D, approve a request by the treasurer to approve the yearly detention pond special assessment for the 2017 winter tax roll.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Demink,
Support.
support by Trustee Joseph. Discussion? Seeing none.
I
Clerk Berry-
I have a
Trustee
question.
Vosper.
Again, this is the first time, this is a new one for me. So what is the money used for then? The special assessment?
That's a special assessment for the retention ponds. And actually, I think Stonehenge retention pond got a new pump motor this year, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the charges that are affiliated with tax rolls.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll elaborate a little bit. Some of the subdivisions have detention ponds that have pump stations in them. And the ones that just are detention ponds need weed cutting and maintenance of that pond or fence work or whatnot. The ones with pumps have maintenance to those actual pumping stations, and electrical bills. And this is the levy which is borne by the taxpayers in that district for all the retention basins we have in the township.
Are there any that take care of their own costs and maintenance? So these are the ones that the township does the work,
These are
so
the
we
ones that
bill them
These are the ones that we have a special assessment district set up.
for that purpose? So there could be other detention ponds, but the owners of that take care of those themselves?
There very well could be, but my anticipation, if there's multiple property owners involved.
That comes through this process. Thank you.
Motion by trustee Demink, supported by trustee Joseph, to approve the request by the treasurer to approve the yearly detention pond special assessment for the 2017 winter tax roll. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye.
There is an addendum tonight, and that is number 9A.
Mr. Supervisor, I'd like to make a motion to set a public hearing for August 7th, 2017 at 7 p.m. pursuant to Act 33, Public Acts of 1951 as amended, on the issue of whether to create a special assessment district for the maintenance and operation and for the purchase of motor vehicles, apparatus, equipment, and housing for a combined police and fire public safety department, and to hear objections against the creation of a special assessment district and the estimate of costs and the amount of the special assessment levy.
Support.
Motion by trustee Joseph, support by clerk Berry. Board discussion.
Mr. Supervisor, I'm going to limit my comments on this particular item because of the obvious we're going to have a public hearing, and I would also be submitting to the clerk a request at the beginning of our board meeting on August 7th to present a PowerPoint to lay out some of the findings and deliberations that we've been engaged in for the past few months. Briefly, no secret that our police department has had considerable struggles. We, on this board, those of us who remained from the previous board were, I think, fairly robustly attacked for not having a long-term plan. And several times, whether it was discussions about eviscerating the police department and laying off and so forth, we carried through. We kept the departments, both departments, very healthy. The taxes were not raised, and we passed a general fund transfer last year as really a bridge, and the bridge was designed to get us into a new board with hopefully an opportunity to come up with a long-term solution. Several months ago, Clerk Berry and Treasurer LaFata brought me into an idea that they had begun initially assessing, and the feasibility of that looked very, very promising to me. Trustee Anderson assisted with vetting out issues involving the police and fire amalgamation, if you will, and I spent considerable time with Attorney Siebert looking at the finances and the legality of our current millage and special assessment structure. Mr. LaFata and Clerk Berry have assessed this from a financial standpoint with regard to future assessing numbers and the tax revenue piece of this. We will again elaborate in greater detail, but this is a winner for Chesterfield Township. The concerns and the reason for bringing this out of closed session so quickly was shortly after our meeting last week, where there was widespread misinformation, and a lot of people were under the impression that somehow a proposed public safety was an attack on the fire department. The truth of it is there are opportunities here for the elimination of bureaucratic redundancies. We have a fire chief who is planning to retire, and the ability to have one chief, one administrative team, and operate with two autonomous departments. There's no proposal here and no discussion here for firefighters solving crime or pursuing the bad guys and police officers putting out fires. We believe that the craft that our first responders have dedicated themselves to is very noble and respected. There is no intent to amalgamate the principal operating functions of police or fire. The funds that are currently available to fire, both in their operations and their equipment, remains exactly what it was intended by the voters to be used for. There are no provisions in this proposal to do anything with the equipment fund or the operations fund. For that matter, no plan to do anything with whatever fund balance is left in the police department. Those are left exactly the way the voters intended them to be used. So there is no raiding of one department to shore up another department. What we have here is greater flexibility in terms of what to do with a combined. So roughly speaking, we have roughly 8 1/4 mills that are currently divided among 2 millages and a special assessment district for the purposes of fire and police. We'd like to combine those. We would at that point be able to work to eliminate bureaucratic and government redundancies, specifically in the administrative functions that both departments share. They can shoulder that responsibility in a much more efficient way. And we can use the 8 1/4 as the combined public safety board deems it should be assigned. So we would have one chief, and again, we'll talk more in detail at the next board meeting, but we would have a command structure within the 2 departments that lend itself to a joint administrative operation. And any involvement of expenditure of funds would go through the public safety command structure and report it to this board as one unit. So it's a time for this type of, it's being done all over the state, and we're not reinventing the wheel here. There is an amalgamation process that really can reveal terrific savings that I would like to see the command in the police and the command in fire work together to bring to the board. This will not cost the residents any money. There's no additional taxes that are going to be collected. And also, the current structure in the special assessment district, which is the largest really millage that you have in the police department, is the 5 mill special assessment district. That does not allow the revenue to be captured in personal property. So your property taxes are not collected on personal property. Businesses that purchase equipment and machines are not levied taxes on their equipment. On the fire side, because it is a millage, that millage captures personal property and real property. The proposal to go to a combined special assessment district eliminates the personal property tax on business owners, and the business community, rightfully so, has been complaining for decades about paying taxes on, say, a printer that their grandfather bought for the business 30 years ago. It is a winner for the business community, it's a winner for our first responders, and most importantly, it's a winner for our residents who get excellent service without an increase in taxes. So we will again expound on this at our next board meeting, where we will present the hard numbers and people can see for themselves what and how we're looking to improve the public safety here in Chesterfield Township. But this addendum is the first step. This request for a public hearing is the first step, and we'll be prepared on August 7th to explain this in greater detail. Thank you.
Any further comments from the board before I open it up to the public, and then we will have another opportunity. Anyone from the public, just state your name, your address, and
My name is Gordon Tazinski. I am the president of the Chesterfield Township Firefighters Union, Local 4011. I came here tonight to get some questions answered about some rumors that were going around. The addendum we just saw as we were walking in answered those questions. Mr. Joseph, you did answer a lot that I had. I do have a few more, and I'd like to make a statement. One, has there been any input on this public safety department you guys want to create from the fire department? Two, has there been any input from the police department on this public safety department you guys want to create?
we'll answer them at the end. We'll do the best. We'll answer them at the end.
Okay. With that being said, I just want to start off by thanking the citizens of the township for for their unwavering support. That's 15-plus years. In 2001, this township began staffing its fire department 24 hours a day to provide the best services for its citizens. In 2012, due to the economic recessions, we were forced to go before the citizens of the township and ask them to support 2 millages to provide for the operations and the capital needs of our department. That November, the voters let their voice be heard. They passed both millages. The citizens of this township have shown their support for their fire department time and time again. They passed 3 millages in a row, 1 in 2008 and 2 in 2012, so they can maintain the staffing services that we provide. The fire department has always made it a priority to be a good stewards of the citizens' money. And it shows by us having an operational fund balance of over $8 million today and an equipment fund balance over $6.2 million. It has come to my attention now with this public safety department that wants to be created. Now we want to redistribute voter-approved fire department tax dollars because of another department that might be in financial straits. I think by following through with this proposal, the board will be acting against the vote that the citizens have made, and you'll be arbitrarily trying to decide that these fire department funds should be used elsewhere. To reiterate, the citizens of this township have voted multiple times to financially support their fire department. And if we try and find a way or figure out a way to redistribute these funds, it's going against the vote of the board, the people who you sit there to represent. Their voice was heard, and it's a dangerous precedence for this board on its own accord to try and repurpose the taxes that the citizens allocated for their fire department. When a voter makes a decision at the ballot booth, they need to be certain that their elected officials will honor that vote. For you to try and take fire millage revenues and figure out a way to redistribute them to other agencies will erode the confidence that the voters have placed in you. This could also very well jeopardize future endeavors that you ask the voters to support. The voters spoke. They have made their intentions clear. They support the Chesterfield Township Fire Department. I believe it's your duty as an elected official to do the same. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for your service. Any further public comment?
My name is Bob Adair Sr. I live at 28189 Raleigh Crescent, Chesterfield Township. The only reason I'm up here tonight is to praise our police department. A few weeks ago, I was at the right place at the right time, gut instinct from being a police officer. I contacted Chesterfield Township, and they arrested 6 suspects in a home invasion within minutes. Within minutes of me calling, the second time, they had the car stopped on I-94, and within 8 minutes, the car was at my house getting my statement. I just want you all to know how good our police department is, and maybe, other than Trustee DeMink and Trustee Anderson, because they're both police officers, maybe the rest of you should get in that patrol car for 2-3 hours at night. Just ride with the officers and see what they do, see what they put up with, see the risks that they take, and say thanks for what they do, because they do a hell of a job. And their response time with the manpower that they have is good, and our citizens are safe. So I just wanted the board to know that. So Chief Kirsten, could you thank your officers, because I don't know which ones were involved, but they all did a great job. Court cases are still going on, but they deserve a thank you.
My name's Ed Cuneo. I live at 50685 Jim Drive. I don't think you guys have done your homework to look into this at all. The fire department, the history, how we got our millages, how we operated, When we went for our first millage and got approved, at the time, we were using $100,000 out of the general fund for the operation of the fire department. Immediately, when our millage was approved, the township board at that time took that $100,000 and gave it to the police to supplement their budget. It's been a lifelong thing going on with this township. We have a good fire department and a good police department, but the township boards have never held the police department within their budget. I don't know if you guys can give me 1 year that they have. Now what you want to do is take our fire operations and equipment fund and bankrupt it also. And I guarantee you, you will with a combination like that. PSO departments don't work. If you want to talk to some of the people that are out there when they have a fire, first guy on the scene, the police department, they start directing traffic, but they're getting extra money because they got fire gear in their trunk now. And they're double certified, so you have to pay them more. Okay, it does not work. When we had our first operation millage, we went for an equipment millage because we had very large expenditures. As you just noticed, I'm buying 2 fire trucks, also with a station. You might think that the fire department's sitting there with a big surplus right now in equipment, but the township board at the time, when they built Station 3, even though we had the cash in the bank, decided to bond that out. So we're paying monthly payments on that. Take the equipment fund money the fire department has, pay off the bond on the fire station first, then see how much extra money there's left to give to the police. The fire department's always lived within their budget, other than the 1 year when we switched from a general township to a charter township. And we were required to pay it back the first year. The $300,000 the police department had was waived by the township board. They did not have to pay it back. Okay? For years, the fire department has been true to the citizens in taking care of their tax dollars as if it was our own money. Now to take it, you know, why not include the DPW in this? They got a lot of money too. You can also have them and then get some more money from else. Building department, they're going to start building now, so now we'll get more permit fees in, so you can use that too for the police department. Again, I want to say, we got a good police department and a good fire department, but you need to find a better way to fund it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quino.
Hi, my name is Ellen Hogan, and I am one of the ones that voted for this millage to have the police and the fire department. I believe strongly in having the 2 separate departments, and I do think if you guys do decide to make a public service thing, that you need to notify all of the residents in Chesterfield Township. I found out just through a grapevine, and I think last time we had one of these type of issues, you sent out postcards to all of the residents, and I think this needs to be done again. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up, Mr. Miller. I know you know your way to the podium.
Is this the public comments?
There will be, this is not public comment.
We're still on this agenda. I worked with you.
Mr. Miller.
We had guns.
Mr. Miller, address the board, please.
Okay. I worked with him, and we had loaded guns. We love our police department. I've seen the fire department come to a person's house and help a woman that's kind of special get into an ambulance and go to the hospital. I don't know about this here special assessments, and I want to thank all you good citizens here on the board and these out here, especially these, that depend on you to spend the money. But a few years ago, I read in the paper where one person sitting here in front of me made the comment in a newspaper that they had borrowed money from a general fund to go over to one of the departments, and there was enough left to last while we are in office. Now, when a person's sitting in a public elected official position, and the newspaper is quoting that person as we have enough in the general fund to last while we're in office, I kind of think, wait a minute. I see a lot of cops around here tonight, and I see a lot of good firemen. Be careful how you treat them people. They're very special people. And I want to thank all these good citizens for these earplugs that don't work. They're VA issued. I'm going back to the VA on behalf of these people here, Mr. Acquavetti, and ask them to fix me another set, or else I'll go ahead and spend $3,000 or $4,000 and do it myself. So I don't know about all this here stuff, and it's nice now to be, remember, they used to say silence is golden. Now I'm in the golden age.
My name's Dawn Murphy. I am very disappointed in this board. I've known many of you for a long time. I love our police department. I love our fire department. They both do an exceptional job. I agree with what has been said. The residents had voted for the fire department to have these millages. I mean, they went out, they've talked to the residents. The police department has done the same thing. These guys work hard. The police department works hard too. And I just think it's wrong that you guys are trying to combine something that I think is a good, they do both good jobs. And for you guys to combine them and take the money, all you're going to do is end up depleting it for what? The police department has been in the hole. I've worked here since 1986, and I have not known them to be out of the hole. And again, I agree, if you guys can tell me when they have been out of the hole, great. But you guys have never made them pay it back, and I just think it's wrong if you guys try to combine these two departments. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Rising. I don't generally come to these things, unfortunately, but when it comes to the police and the fire department, I don't know where we can better spend our money. I have concerns about maybe we should be blaming the voters for not giving the police department enough money. If the police department is not handling the money the way they should, then maybe it's up to some of you folks to make sure that they do it right. If they don't have enough money, then the voters are at fault. The police department has been wonderful to me. My dog called 911, and the police department was at my door. And I answered, what's wrong? They said, we heard you say shut up, so maybe you got a problem. Well, I was talking to the dog. The fire department is running up and down Zachary constantly, and God bless them. There's some folks on the street that have a lot of health problems, and they spend a lot of time there, and I'm sure that affects their budget. But I guess I'm here just to say that I appreciate the police, and I understood Mr. Anderson say that none of the police were laid off, and it was my understanding that some were. Now, maybe that was misinformation. Has there been any discussion about considering going with the sheriff department, eliminating the police altogether? I've heard that as a resolution. That's not even a possibility, I'm hoping.
Haven't heard that.
We'll comment at the end of the public comments.
I'm sorry?
We'll comment comment at the end of the public comments. I don't want to back and forth.
Okay. Where they have done that, it hasn't been successful, from what I understand, so I hope that's not even on the table. And a last question to Trustee Vosberg, who said the police department was in a hole and that's being worked on, or you have a resolution to that or something to that effect. I'm assuming that the answer to that is combining the two? And if that is it, I agree with whoever said I think the voters should make that decision, because that is a terrible idea in my opinion. They each have their own specialties, and if you combine them, you're not going to get the best from either one. Thank you. I didn't write anything I shouldn't write here.
Any further comments from the public on item 9A? We're going to bring it back up to the board. A couple comments from me to begin. Some general comments to start. It's been very clear this year that elections have results or have consequences, and the status quo, whether it's our budget process or the last 20, 30 plus years of doing things a certain way that worked when we were a small community, that worked when we were 10, 11,000 people, that worked as we grew and we got more populated and different challenges. But a lot of those processes, and some basic ones, are still in place that we had in place decades ago. The status quo is no longer an option. It's time to make changes, and you've seen a lot of them in the first 6 months, and you're going to see a whole lot more moving forward. The biggest financial hurdle that we have is the police department budget. And this is not anything new. This has been brewing, and we've been digging without a solution for almost a decade, where you see these trends continue. So when I took office, it was a pretty turbulent time to begin with, just with everything that happened around us. Every option in my mind was on the table. Like Ms. Rising stated, the sheriff's department. As uncomfortable as that is, it was on my table. Tremendous cuts throughout the entire township, which we have options available to us, is on the table, was on the table. The problem is, those two options were so undesirable, along with a whole bunch of other ones. Undesirable to our existing team members, with some of the cuts that would have to happen across the board, not just per department. Losing our identity by going with a sheriff's department seemed not very palatable to our community. So this is a solution, although it's different, and although it's scary, like change always is, and although it's uncertain, it's creative, and it is something that we can get right, and we're hoping to have participation from all parties. Knowing that my goal is not one particular group. One of the biggest frustrations has been the great divides we have within our community. It's very shocking to us. A lot of comments about us and our department, and what we did in our things, and it's not just the fire comments here. I see it time and time again in various departments, in various bargaining units throughout the township. Now, my job is not those individuals or those groups within our township. My job is the entire team of the township to make sure that we are an amazing place to work, that we are a good place to live, and that we are a great place to invest in or for someone to take a chance on. Everybody. So I know it's going to be difficult. The input, Mr. Trzynski, is from the police and fire. Now's the time. And I am looking forward to constructive ways to get through this as one Chesterfield. And I think we can really do something special here. Someone spoke about sending out a notice on the public hearing. This item, although I was anticipating this taking a little bit more, not happening as quickly as it is, I do understand the urgency and the need to solve it, and I do think that this solution is coming to the top. This is setting the public hearing, so that notice and the card that was spoken of will be sent out. With that, I'll cut off my comments and I'll move on to the rest of the board. Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. Just to follow up on some of your comments, we are looking for input from the fire department, from the police department. The reason why we've been hesitant until now to ask for it is we had to see if this could be done. We had to get all those questions answered from our legal team, from the insurance perspective, from a number of different perspectives. Not first, before should we do it, is could we do it? Now we have to answer the question, should we do it? And I think that on August 7th, there's going to be a presentation presented for a lot of reasons why we should do it. This option has been very, very thoroughly vetted from every perspective you can possibly think of. And what we would, I think, like to see more than anything, what I would like to see more than anything, is to have all of our team members on board with us. That's what makes the most successful endeavor, is when we have everybody on board. I'll share as well, Mr. Supervisor, I share your sentiments. I'm so disappointed that our team members are blaming each other, fighting each other, because that compromises, the attitude compromises our service delivery to our residents. And that's first and foremost our main concern. Our goal, my goal, has always been to deliver the highest quality of service at the lowest possible cost. And this option provides that, in that we will have firefighters fighting fires. Police officers are going to be fighting crime. Nothing will change in that regard. Nothing changes. Firefighters fight fires. Police officers fight crimes. What may change, instead of having two people doing their payroll, maybe one person will do their payroll. Instead of two people pushing the same paper in one place and in another place, maybe it happens by one person in one place. Okay? It's those sort of efficiencies that Michigan State did an extensive study as to why this is working so well throughout the state. And we're looking forward to demonstrating that on August 7th. But we need everyone's help. And I hope that everyone will participate with us. And I'm actually very, very excited about this. And I'm looking forward to sharing some of the reasons for that on August 7th.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. A question, public comment was, addressed a question to me when I said, I believe my comment was, we are working on the police department issue, the budgeting issue. And all I meant by that was that we're aware of it. We're trying to find ways to find a sustainable budget process for the police department. And I too support looking into this, because I believe it's a new time, and I also believe that we are most effective township-wide, community-wide, when all the people involved take part in the decision-making. So I'm looking forward to hearing from employees, from residents, from people even perhaps from other communities where it has worked or has not worked. We need to hear all the pros and the cons for this issue. So looking forward to the public hearing. Thank you.
Trustee Domingue.
There was a lot of rumors flying around lately regarding this. I didn't know about a lot of this until what the discussion was in closed session. We had a legal opinion from Mr. Siebert. So I'm bounded by the rules of closed session, so I can't say much right now. They're going to have this public hearing, so everybody can come. Police officers, the guys from the fire department, the public. So everybody's going to be sent a notice like they've said. So everybody have their questions, sit down, write them out. It's only right now a public hearing. From what I know, correct, David, there's no motion to do anything if this is correct. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's only be a public hearing, so get your...
Are you talking tonight? I'm sorry.
No, I'm talking for August 7th. We're having, can I address him on that?
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just saying that there is no motion on the table at this time to do this. We're having a public hearing to get input from police, fire, and citizens. Is that correct, sir?
So let me answer that very, very directly.
Okay, sir.
My intent is to bring a motion to the clerk in accordance with the board rules for a presentation. Who from our caucus, I don't know, makes that presentation. That will be my request, is to make a presentation. This passes tonight and we set a public hearing for the 7th. My intention is to hear the public hearing and include a motion to go into a public safety department. So to answer your question, there will be presentation, a public hearing, and then a request to adopt a public safety SAD. So no, it's not from my standpoint, now I'm just one vote, but from my standpoint, it will be to do this because I know the plan. Right, I know the plan, so I can only go with what I know in terms of proposing. So I know the plan. I believe it's a good plan. If somebody changes my mind, I guess I would ask to withdraw, but at this point, my intention is to go forward and ask for board support to create a public safety department on August 7th.
I don't want to go back and forth too much. You can finish your comments. And
okay, but my thing was right now, it's only going to be a public hearing, to my knowledge. This is what it's going to be. And we're all going to sit here, and we're all going to vent it out. Fire guys, the police officers, the citizens, because everybody's going to get a notice, and everybody's going to have their chance to say, and there's going to be questions a lot. The meeting we had the other night, like I say, I can't disclose because of closed session. I still have questions, and especially with some of the wording and things like that. I've got questions. We all know I came from law enforcement. There was a comment about the sheriff's department. You know, those you don't know, I came from the sheriff's department. I spent 25 years there. I retired 15 years ago. Now I work for another police department. I've always worked with the guys from Chesterfield. Some of the guys here, including Chief Kirsten and McNair and the guys. When I was on the road at the county, I worked with them. I've never brought up contracting since I've been here. When I first got on this board 13 years ago, there was always a rumor going around, the Mink's going to contract with the county because he came from the county. I haven't, and I won't. So I'll put that out there right now. So all I'm going to say to this is, Firefighter Tazinski, Retired Chief Cuneo, Mrs. Hogan, and the other person that comes, sorry I missed your name, Mr. Miller, everybody, get your questions, get your answers, in that public hearing. We're going to be here August 7th, and let's hear what's all proposed and what's all in this. Like I said, there was some talk amongst us at a closed session. I still have more questions that I want to see and that I need answers. So that's about all I can say right now. I thank you for everyone being here, your concern, and supporting the fire department and the police departments both.
Treasurer LaFata.
There were roughly 5 options that were being considered. The first one was transfers from the general fund that was in the study that was done by Plant Moran. The township would have to continue transferring from the general fund starting in 2017, $1.5 million every year from the general fund moving forward. That isn't long-term financially, doesn't give the township long-term financial stability. It will exhaust the general fund. The second one was ask the residents for a millage increase. That's been voted down twice already. It doesn't look like it's too popular with the residents. The third one is, well, we can make budget cuts, but 85% of the police budget is wages and benefits. So that means head count cut. You'd have to cut enough heads to where the department couldn't respond when they're needed so that residents get the service that they deserve. The fourth one was the contract with Macomb County Sheriff. That's possible, but nobody knows what the long-term outcome is. Macomb Township's done it. Sheriff Wickersham has gone back and told them they need to build a police station for them. They need to increase their patrols by 20 officers. And actually, they have no control of policing their own township. The fifth one was to consider a public safety department. This would just initially merge police and fire department administrative duties. And what it's going to do is when we create a public assessment district and collect the same amount of millage that the residents are paying right now, they will get the same service that they're getting today with no added cost. And I can't see anything wrong with combining residents' tax dollars to continue to give them the same service they deserve. There's no such thing as police fund money, fire department money. It's money that the residents have for their services. It doesn't belong to the police department, doesn't belong to the fire department, doesn't belong to the board members. It should be spent in the best interest of the residents. Thank you.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. Don't want to get accused of replowing the field. A lot of these points have been covered already. Chief Cuneo, former Chief Cuneo, good seeing you, sir. You brought up some interesting points in your remarks. When you have government at any level, township government, state, whatever, you've been around since the 80s, correct? And I know we're not supposed to talk to people specifically, but an interesting point is each board, previous boards, in essence, what they may have done is strictly kick the proverbial can down the street when it comes to funding police and fire. Jockeying money around to get through a 3 or 4 year period, and then we're gone. I could take a lot of time explaining to something that happened to the fund equity of the police department about 14 years ago. After the voters passed the 5 mills, the then board started a certain fee they were taking, a general administration fee. And during the last 14 years ago or so, that's over $2 million has been taken out of the fund equity, year by year, the township doing things that could have been done by the police department. These are some of the issues that have to be addressed. The term, Department of Public Safety. I was in law enforcement like Mr. Dominka. I was in one of the suburbs to the south of us here. And when I heard that term, Department of Public Safety, my skin crawled. In 16 or 18 years, I was with the police and then the Police and Fire Advisory Board. Not handing anything erroneous. You have a tremendous law enforcement organization here and fire department. We need to maintain home rule. I'll be glad to talk to anyone that's interested in contracting out with the sheriff. I know what the pitfalls are in doing that. Skin crawling, when I heard that term, I had visions of police officers, as someone said down here, getting a call to the fire, putting on their little boots, putting their guns away and all that, and going fighting fires. I joined, and I think Mr. Dominka and I joined to be law enforcement. Most of you in this building here, you joined to be firefighters, and not cross-train or anything like that. I do not support that. I would not support that component of this. It is strictly an administrative thing to get the biggest bang for our buck for our township. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, sir. Thank you.
Further board comments, Trustee Joseph, I'm going to get a shot this time around if you would like to.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Echoing the sentiments of Trustee Anderson, there is no intent, again, to cross-train anybody. These are two autonomous departments, and the ability to absorb the administrative fees, which he mentioned, if you look at the police department budget, and this is going back a few supervisors, but I have it directly from Supervisor Ellis, and that is when the police department special assessment district of 5 mills was created, somebody said, I don't know if they've ever been out of the hole. They were out of the hole to the tune of millions of dollars. And the ability to use the special assessment district to cover administrative fees, as Trustee Anderson mentioned, has been hundreds of thousands of dollars over years and years and years and years. So if these are necessary costs, when we vote to approve the special assessment district, we approve police protection. I don't know how many people realize that that also includes the payroll clerk that processes their pay. There are a number of administrative things that are in that special assessment district that I guarantee you most people door to door would not believe that that is consistent with police protection, but it is. And so when you have these administrative fees that get layered on, they're layered on to both departments. You have to centralize that function of it, if nothing else. There's nothing unique about the craft of fighting fires if you're an administrative clerk processing a payroll check. You can do that equally in any department that we have in the township. So to take a look at how much money you can save by merging those functions, it just makes sense. This is not an attempt to, as we've talked about, and we'll talk more on the 7th, you're not going in to pillage one fund because they have a fund balance. You can't do it. And whoever talked about the intent of the voter was exactly right. The voters, when the millage was approved, the voters gave the parameters under which that money could be collected, levied, and spent. So if you recall back in 2008 when there was the request for more operations money, a lot of people came forward and said, well, just use the equipment money. You have all kinds of money there. You couldn't do it in-house. You couldn't commingle those funds. There's no way that you can just call a special assessment district for public safety and then mash all the money together that's been collected. That's not the intent either. You have equipment that will be used for equipment in the fire department. You have operations that will be used for operations. And then you actually have a fund balance in the police department that will be used for police. That was what it was collected for. But in terms of the will of the voters approved a levy up to, and then fill in the amount, whatever you're talking about. So we can, by a will of the voters, levy up to 5 mills in the police department, up to so forth in the fire. Combined, under the special assessment, under Act 33, the special assessment district that this board has the prerogative to create is up to, it far exceeds our need. But we have the ability to create a special assessment district and then choose to levy nothing on the existing. All we're talking about is moving forward, not the past, not what was already collected. There's no rating. We're not going to buy Cadillac patrol vehicles with the firefighters' equipment money. So that's not what's going on here. The thing that's disappointing, we have a great relationship. Our chiefs have a great relationship. I understand Chief Charbonneau and Chief Kirsten regularly meet together for lunch, talk about shared interests, talk about the township and different things in their department. I assume that the firefighters and the policemen have great relationships as well. I know there's that interdepartment kind of rivalry, and I hope that it's good-natured. I hope that it's good-natured and spirited in terms of laughing about some of the most difficult things that the two of your departments face on a daily basis. But if we get to a point where people start talking about they can't work within their budget, how do you work within a budget? Police department's been completely under assault. You have no way of knowing what happens in the township. You can reasonably go forward, but it's almost impossible to put the very specific dollars and then chastise the chief for failing to work within his budget. It's tough. And the voters, I believe, have continued to support the fire department, as they will continue to support the fire department. I hope that we don't have a us versus them, so we start attacking police officers and talking about the sheriff's department, and they've always been in the hole. They've never had to pay back money. They've always been a drain. That's a horrible thing to do, and we can't allow that to happen. I'd call upon the leaders in both departments to make sure that your people and the people that support you do not engage in that kind of attack. It's counterproductive, because we are one Chesterfield. We are one Chesterfield, and it is the voters and the residents who rely on us to make decisions to keep them safe. I understand the sentiment that Mr. LaFata was talking about when he talked about funds coming in. And they are earmarked for different places, but that doesn't belong to that department. That belongs to the voters. And the stewardship of that money is what we're charged to do. So I appreciate the dedication to the department and the natural, instinctive being somewhat territorial. But don't lose sight of the fact that you serve the residents of Chesterfield Township, and it is their best interest that we are all collectively working towards. We can provide them excellent service without changing the landscape of the craft that you've dedicated your lives to. We can, we should, and I think we will. Thank you.
Motion by trustee Joseph, support by clerk Berry, to set a public hearing for August 7th, 2017 at 7 p.m. pursuant to Act 33, Public Acts of 1951 as amended, on the issue of whether to create a special assessment district for the maintenance and operation for the purchase of motor vehicles, apparatus, equipment, and housing for a combined police and fire public safety department, and to hear objections against the creation of the special assessment district and the estimate of costs and the amount of the special assessment levy. Clerk Berry, please call the roll.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Clerk Berry, aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Supervisor Akavetti.
Aye. Motion passes. Item number 10, public comment.
Ed Cuneo, Jim Drive. Hank, it was good seeing you too. I don't know why you politicians just wasted the taxpayer money to have a public hearing. The expense of it, you've already made up your mind. You know what you're doing. You think you know what you're doing. What happens if your special assessment doesn't pass? I, as a taxpayer, would not entrust you to pass a special assessment district and not charge me the millage too. That's how dishonest I think politicians are. I'm sorry, you guys are unreal. Mr. LaFata, you're the treasurer. A millage that's specified for the fire department is the fire department's money. They can't just go out and spend it. There's controls on it, and you guys have those controls. But even between the equipment and operation fund and the millage between those two with the fire department, we couldn't commingle the funds. Just like the police department, they have their special assessments. Also was brought up the special assessment. It actually brings in less money on businesses than a millage. So you're going to decrease how much money you're bringing in. You guys, this is a wrong move to even have a public hearing on it. And you've already made up your mind just the way you're talking. We already know that. And you already have the 4 votes, maybe more. I'm hoping everybody comes up to the public hearing and lets you know what they think about it. But I think what you're doing is a big mistake. I have nothing against our police department, fire department, but if you want to check, the township boards did kick it down the road, never held the people accountable to stay within their budgets, and that's what you're going to get. I think the fire department has always stayed well within their budget. And like I said, the equipment fund had a good balance there, but that was to build a new station, which the board at that time decided to bond out. So it took a loan out. So pay off your loan and then see how much money you got left in the fire department fund. But I think you're going to end up bankrupting both departments. And instead of having one department in trouble, we'll have 2. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. Matt Saar with the Michigan Professional Firefighters and the International Association of Firefighters. I'm here today on behalf of the Chesterfield Firefighters, Local 4011. I just want to start by saying it's encouraging to see that everybody's in favor of emergency services, and you guys are strong supporters of your police and fire, and that, as we know, is a bedrock of each community. So I commend you on that, and believe it or not, there is municipalities out there that don't go as far as what you guys have gone to tonight. So I think you guys are so far on the right track, and I'm looking forward to the meeting on August 7th. But prior to that meeting on August 7th, we're looking forward more to working with you guys one-on-one and letting you know some of our concerns. It's not about police first fire. That's the wrong attitude to have. And territorial, yes, you'll hear guys say, but those are our dollars. I think Trustee Joseph said it best when he said the tax dollars are earmarked by the voters, and they are. And I'd like to hear him say how he intends not to separate those, not to combine those dollars to buy cruisers versus a fire or ladder truck. And looking at administration-wise, you guys have an excellent administrator. I can't speak for the police chief, but if Chief Charbonneau likes him, I like him. But I can tell you that the fire department has a good administrator, a guy with close to 40 years in the fire service. And when he steps away, that'll be a huge hole left in your department. And to say that you can have one person do both of those jobs, that might be a stretch, but that's something that we think we could talk to you about over the next 10 days. Our last concern would be that, you know, in the midst of summer vacations, I myself am going away next weekend. Maybe not, I understand the vote. And it's a priority to you all. It's a priority to the residents, it's a priority to the police and fire. But maybe not hold the vote that night. How about just have a public hearing, discuss it, people can sit on it, they can think about it, we can come back at the board meeting and make that vote. I think that would be fair. I don't think that there's anything that is urgent in that matter. But again, that is your job to make that decisions as the elected officials of Chesterfield. Again, President Tazinski and myself are looking forward to meeting with you over the next 10 days. And we have a good working relationship with each other, and we hope to do the same with you all. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Miller.
I forgot to sign in. I apologize. And I'm not going to tell them, you, the rest of you, which one of you said in the newspaper, we have enough to last till during our time in office. When I read that, my friends, I aged about another 30 or 40 years. So it won't be long before I'll be 100. No, leave my two organizations just like they are, and let's go on with life. I tried to remove some people, and I did, and then I tried to elect some people, and I'm glad I did. I did participate in the process, but when you start special this and special that, I am very, very leery of that. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
My name's Dawn Murphy again. You know, I don't get up here and talk very much, but when something concerns me and is close to my heart, police is very close to my heart, just as much as the fire department. I'm not going to be here August 7th because I will be at the burn camp working with some kids. So I would like to voice a couple other concerns that I have. You guys are only going to be here for another 3 years, a little over 3 years. What guarantees this is not going to happen, that combining the departments, that the money will not be overdrawn by the police department? There's not going to be a guarantee. You guys sit here and say this is going to be separate. I just don't see it happening. It may be now, but in 3 years from now, depending on if any of you guys are still here, what's going to prevent that? You know, the fire department has given up a lot. These guys haven't had a raise in over 7 years before they finally got a raise. You know, and it's just disappointing. These guys are behind on pays. I'm sure the police department is the same. When I see people in the office making more than our guys that put their lives out there and risk their lives, you know, something's wrong. When I see a person sitting at a desk, and no offense to a lot of people, but our guys are risking our lives, and here they're getting paid pennies between police and fire. Our guys have always worked good together, our police and fire department. You go to other areas around, and there's a very big camaraderie. They're always fighting, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. Our guys, both police and fire, have always gotten along. So I just disagree with you guys trying to combine this. The residents spoke. I am a resident of this township. A majority of our guys are residents of this township. Our police department guys, a majority of them are residents too. And I think you really need to sit down and talk to everybody about this, not make a decision. And I agree with the young man here that you guys need to think about this, have a discussion, and don't vote on it on the 7th. I think other people are going to probably want to come in because, again, people are going to be on vacation, people are going to be doing things. Thank you.
Public comment.
I'll be quick. I think it would be helpful at this meeting in August that you somehow break it out a little bit to explain how there's going to be savings. If you have a person who is doing a job, even whatever it is, for the fire department, and then you have them do it for the police department, you think they're going to do that for the same money? The odds are they're going to either need more money or you're going to have to hire another person. I mean, generally speaking, most of those jobs aren't half jobs, I don't think. And if you're doing accounting for both sides, all I'm suggesting is maybe somehow you could have a handout that says, if this job were divided between the two, you'd save approximately this much. If this was approximately that much, so that you'd have a sense of where you're going to get all this extra money that you're shortfall. It would help me a lot. I used to be an accountant, and I'm looking at this saying, I don't know, is there going to be that much of a savings if you have 30 people? I don't know. How many people are you talking about? 30 people that will now be doing two jobs for both of these organizations? That would be very, I think, helpful to the people who are coming in. And also, I think it would be helpful, as Mr. Anderson said, to make it clear that these people are not going to be doing both jobs from time to time. If my house is burning, I would prefer a policeman not come to with this. If my house is broken into, fire department, I don't know, you need the specialty. You don't need a combined thing, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it up to the board. Trustee Demink.
Nope, I said what I had to say in the last part, so I'm good, Mr. Supervisor, thanks.
Trustee Vosberg.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. As the liaison to Southeast Michigan Council of Government, SEMCOG, I'd like to remind everyone in the township, again, if you have not already done so, please go to the township's website, the homepage. You can Google Chesterfield Township, Michigan, or it's chesterfieldtwp.org. On the lower right-hand side of the homepage, there's a survey that you can take. It's called 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. There's a number of questions that are being asked that would like to know areas that you see are traffic hazards, other areas that are problematic for whatever reason, please go and take time to address that and answer the questions there. It's a comprehensive survey. Give yourself at least 15 minutes to answer it, but we desperately want our input, especially when we get a lot of input from Chesterfield that will get considered when they're making the plans for the federal dollars for highways and roads. Thank you.
Trustee Joseph?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The issue on the back and forth with regard to the special assessment district, I think we've probably said enough for tonight, but I will say, Mr. Czar, I will take from tonight's meeting your words. They were the most encouraging, and I absolutely will reach out and meet with you and your representatives. I'd like to tell you more about how we came to this proposal, why we think it works, and certainly the relationship that Chief Charbonneau has had with the firefighters union has been extraordinary in my opinion. He came forward not too long ago with the restructuring of the entire department. And anytime you start reallocating staff and changing positions, you're bound to have union difficulties. He had none. There was a partnership there, and there is belief in the leadership. So I know that what the union does is in part the responsibility and the urging of Chief Charbonneau. We need the support of the fire department to make this work. We can't have a civil war, and the house divided against itself cannot stand. So there are real savings here. They are bureaucratic redundancies. They are not layoffs. They are not a shrinking of the force. We have an opportunity to take advantage of some natural shrinking through attrition, retirements. We've really looked at this all the way down the line, and I'm encouraged to hear your words tonight about working with the board. Again, the hope is to have a very high-functioning, smart, dedicated, but autonomous first responder team. And I think we then put ourselves into a position of some of the things that board members and I have been talking about. We have neighbors in this sort of blue water community that aren't doing so well. There's talk about how could we expand our services and help out others. There are tax revenue streams available to us that I don't think we've ever really even fully imagined. So there's room here, and there are opportunities here, and it doesn't come at the expense of either department. So again, I know in talking, I have a tendency, I know more police officers than I do firefighters, and I hear from them, and I hear it gets ugly, and it got ugly when we made the $3.5 million general fund transfer. They took some very unkind things. People are always, I support the police department, but when money's involved, it becomes, well, you got to work within your budget, as if you're out, spending money frivolously. So the savagery, it was really quite ugly. It was really quite ugly, and we had a divided board, which didn't help. So to avoid that at all costs is a great concern of mine, and I would really like to see, cooperation on your part, your members, and most importantly, the chief. If there wasn't some territorial, I would wonder how passionate you are about your craft anyway. So if you just sort of said, whatever you do with the money, I don't really care, it would be a disservice to your craft. So I respect you for coming out and standing up for something that you've dedicated your lives to. This isn't hostile. This is, as I think the supervisor rightly pointed out, this is the belief in one Chesterfield. And so when you ask somebody to step up and they feel that they've done a safe job of navigating and being good stewards of the tax dollars, and like we gave at the office, don't make us hold the bag for somebody else. I get it. I understand where you're coming from. This will be done without detriment to your department, your craft, and what you've dedicated your lives to do. I believe that. And I'll show you as best I can on the 7th. We may not always agree, but I have an infinite amount of respect for you, and I've grown to appreciate you in ways that I never really thought I could. So I do not do this lightly, and it is not done at your expense. But again, one Chesterfield is the mission here. Lastly, I'd just like to end on a happy note, or a happier note. As everyone's aware, and you see the buildings completed, and staff have been trained for weeks now, and we're preparing for a very special event occurring on Thursday, August 3rd, Cabela's is here, and their grand opening will take place on August 3rd at 10 a.m. I hope as many of us can get out and support Cabela's and show the people from the state around the region what Chesterfield has to offer. As you know, the Chesterfield Cabela's is the anchor of what promises to be some real world-class development coming into our community. And again, I think it's time for our first responders to match that level of investment with a very smart, efficient public safety department. So thank you all, and thanks for your comments tonight.
Trustee Anderson.
Thank you. I don't want to resurrect my earlier remarks, so I'll just reinforce. Be here August 7th for the meeting. Watch the presentation. Sometimes when you operate in a vacuum or you get snippets of information on different things, it could be erroneous, they could be misleading, they could be accurate, we don't know. Be here August, watch the presentation, give it a fair shake, and then see how it fleshes out. And on a lighter note, there's a trustee up here that's celebrating a birthday this week, I think, so, but I won't mention which one it is. Thank you.
Happy birthday, Mr. Academic.
Trustee, Treasurer LaFada.
The police budget's been an issue since 2010. It's been in deficit. It was put there because of the drop in real estate values. It's been ongoing all the way through 2016. It'll continue based on a plant and land study for eternity. It needs to be addressed, and this board, I have to commend them for wanting to address the issue. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed short term. I thank the residents for coming out and, voicing their views on it. But you have to think with the residents' best interests in mind and how you're going to continue services for both fire and police. Thank you.
Clerk Berry.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I know who's having the birthday, and it's a milestone one. We'll let you all guess which one it is. If I could just, and I'll try to be brief, use a baseball analogy. Many of you probably don't know my dad was a ball player. I was raised in the game, and I watch it from time to time when it doesn't aggravate me, like sometimes that happens. A winning team has a lot of different players in it. And you've got your infielders, your outfielders, you got your pitchers, very important components. They all do very different things. But you have a coaching staff that works together, and though they may be somewhat specialized, they do some of the same functions, and they do them for all the players. And then you have the manager. The manager watches over everybody and works on their overall strategy to win. It wouldn't make much sense, and most good managers aren't going to say, today I'm going to take my catcher and put him in the outfield. They just don't do that. It just doesn't make much sense. They keep their specialized team players in the position that makes the most sense. However, they rely on their coaching staff, which might be your pitching coaches, batting coaches, fielding coaches, and so forth, to help him keep a better eye on what those particular players are doing, and then he can make the best decisions. And when they're all working together in concert and they all know their roles, that's when you have a winning team. And I hope that we're able to accomplish that here. Again, doesn't make any sense to take a catcher who's really good at being a catcher and put him in the outfield, okay? But it makes an awful lot of sense to have 3 or 4 coaches working together on some of the same needs for this player as this player has. So I echoed Trustee Anderson's sentiments. Come out on the 7th and see the plan. And what this plan will do when we're looking at options like have been talked about, reducing staff, raising taxes, all of those very untenable. What we're going to propose, or what I think you're going to see proposed on the 7th, is an option to maintain staffing levels, maintain service delivery, in fact, in some cases, perhaps enhance it, reduce government bureaucracy, reduce redundancies, streamline efficiencies, and cost savings. So what you're going to see at the bottom line, what is all that? That's good governance, and that's what we're charged to do. And I think you're going to be just as excited about it as we are, because I think one of the things you're going to be surprised to see is nobody loses anything. And you're wondering, how does that happen? How can there be win-win situations? And they happen all the time. But it just takes creative problem solving, and it has people who are dedicated to sometimes taking a little heat to do what they know is the right thing to do, so long as it has a plan that's been proven, that there's a reliable method and system to make those things happen, and then there's the will to do it. And change is hard. As that's been mentioned, change is difficult, and sometimes it's a little bit scary. But once you have the facts, a lot of times people will come to a consensus. You'll still have some outliers who, for one reason or another, don't like it. They're like, okay, well, yeah, it solved the problem, but I don't like the way you're solving it. Well, then we have to make those choices. So I really hope that everyone's able to be here on the 7th to be fully informed on the course that may end up taking place. Also, I am the liaison to the Historical Society, and I'd like to encourage everyone to visit our historical village. There's going to be a lot of exciting changes there. Chesterfield's got a tremendous history, and they've got a lot of terrific programs that you can learn about those things. I encourage you to visit the Historical Village and stop by our Historical Society. I have to say, our Historical Society is probably one of the most robust and best attended committee or commission meetings that we have here in the township, and I've sat on beautification, I've seen Parks and Rec, planning, zoning. I've never seen so many active members as I have on historical, and that's fantastic. So encourage you to support them and learn more about them in our historical village. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the turnout and the discussion and the involvement. The timing of this I wasn't necessarily in support of, but here we are. Mr. Czar, Mr. Trzynski, and Mr. Charbonneau, you are crucial and key to this. The status quo is not going to continue on a number of different levels. This is something is going to be happening. This is a solution that I'm really looking forward to your input. Mr. Czar, your comments and your discussion was very welcomed and encouraging. The devil is in the details, and that's where we're going to need our whole community's assistance. This is going to be a great couple weeks. It's going to be a lot of work, but I do look forward to the back and forth and trying to find the right solution for us, which I know is out there, to make sure that both these departments, with their single mission of providing public safety to our residents. It is something that, if you see me walk in the door, I have 5 focus areas that local government should be focused on. Public safety. It's not providing police coverage. It's not providing fire coverage. It's providing public safety. And it is, it's a core value of what we have to do. With that, we move on to item number 12, closed session. I'll make a motion to go into, item number 12A is closed session for the discussion regarding strategy and negotiation sessions pursuant to Section 8C of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
You made a motion.
Oh, I made a motion motion by Supervisor Activated to go into closed session.
Second.
Second by Clerk Berry. Please call the roll.
Supervisor Activetti.
Aye.
Clerk Berry. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
We're in closed session at
We're in closed session at
8:40
p.m.
Black. Change of life party.
Yeah.
Would be.
Saturday. I mean, the party's
Let us know when you're ready.
What time?
7.
Okay.
Yeah, you won't need the
I
mic.
took Friday off.
We already did public comment.
Need any help with any shit with anything?
No, I'm gonna stay home. My brother's going over this week.
We just need to make sure our mics are hot.
Mics are
Sit
hot.
right in the fucking driveway.
I got a motion to re-enter open session. Motion by Supervisor Activetti, Support by trustee Vosberg. Clerk Barry, please call the roll.
Supervisor Echevetti.
Aye.
Trustee Vosberg. Aye. Trustee Anderson.
Aye.
Trustee Joseph.
Aye.
Trustee Demink.
Aye.
Treasurer LaFata.
Aye.
Clerk Barry, aye.
Motion passes. We are back in open session at 9:25 PM. I'll make a motion to adjourn at 9:26 PM. Motion by Supervisor Echevetti, support by trustee Demink. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? We are adjourned.